Hello, everybody, and welcome. You are here with the University of Miami Alumni Association, and it is Let the Music Play. And I am Winston Warrior. I'm going to be your host and your moderator this evening. And you may be wondering, well, why did the University of Miami pick Winston Warrior, and who is he? Well, let me just give you a little bit of background about me before we get to our wonderful panelists. So first of all, I'm a double alum of the U. So I've been a Kane, I don't know, 30 some years, I don't know how, and so I went to the School of Business and also have my MBA from the University of Miami Business School. And then I was an executive for a long time. And I also was in the music industry, kind of still am, but was in the music industry, reached number 27 on Billboard R&B charts. We can talk about that later. And now I'm back at the U. I'm a professor here at the University of Miami. I'm a part-time lecturer in the School of Communication. And then my main appointment is working for the School of Education and Human Development, where I am the Executive Director of Strategic Communications, Marketing, and Operations. Say that fast 3 times. So that's why I'm here. And without further ado, before I go to the guests, let me just give you some some details around what we're going to be doing. The panelists will have a great conversation, and we have disabled the chat feature, but you can submit your questions in the Q&A function. So please do that for us if you have questions for the panelists, okay? I think those are the ground rules, the housekeeping that we wanted to take care of. And now we're going to get to the panelists, right? So, let me just introduce the panel before I introduce each panelist. The Let the Music Play panel this evening deals with how the music has stopped or has changed because of the pandemic. The pandemic has devastated the touring business. Record sales have plummeted and cut the growth of digital streaming as people spend far less time in the car or at the gym. Artists have struggled to connect with fans and have missed the energy they get from live concerts. Devastating the world of the arts with concert halls, clubs, and theaters shut down, forcing a different kind of survival mode of creativity. Some initial changes have happened, from drive-in concerts, I know I've gone to a couple, Zoom practice sessions, and in-home concerts. Many artists are streaming live on Facebook and Instagram. Quarantine has not only forced artists in the music business to innovate, but it's also forced fans to enjoy music and their favorite artists in new ways. So tonight we will hear from industry leaders and an international music artist who you just heard, Nicole Henry, and how they are navigating through this new world in the pandemic. So speaking of Nicole Henry, let me introduce you to Nicole Henry, who has her BSc in 2000. And so Nicole and I went to school together. Sorry, I'm giving your age away with that number and the fact that we went to school together, Nicole. But anyway, since her debut in 2004, Nicole Henry has established herself as one of the jazz world's most acclaimed performers, possessing a potent combination of dynamic vocal abilities, impeccable phrasing, and sincere, powerful emotional resonance. And let me just tell you, she and I were in the Inspiration Concert Choir, the Hammond Inspiration Concert Choir, and she was a feature soloist alive. And let me tell you, her vocals are all of that, and a bag of chips, and a club soda on the side. So
I haven't heard that one, Winston.
Her passionate, soulful voice and heartfelt charisma, as you see that beautiful smile, have earned her a Soul Train Award for Best Traditional Jazz Performance and 3 top 10 US Billboard and HMV Japan Jazz albums. Ms. Henry tells real stories through unparalleled interpretations of her repertoire, from the American Songbook, classic and contemporary jazz, popular standards, blues, and originals. She has captivated audience over 20 countries and has also performed in more than 30 music festivals worldwide. She has recorded with many of today's musical greats, and in late 2019, Ms. Henry returned to the theatrical stage and garnered critical praise in the musical The Bodyguard. And in early 2021, she will perform in the new musical, A Wonderful World, the story of Louis Armstrong. And because of her career accomplishments and philanthropic work, the city of Miami Beach and Miami-Dade County have designated 3 days in 2010, 2016, and 2017 as Nicole Henry Days. Everyone, welcome Nicole Henry. Thank you for being with us, Nicole.
Great to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, our second panelist is Bill O'Dodd. He is the founder and CEO of Dolphin Entertainment, the entertainment industry's only independent collection of A-list marketing companies that provides expert strategic marketing and publicity services to many of the top brands, both individual and corporate, in the film, television, music, and hospitality industries. Surefire Media is one of those firms and the music industry's leading PR agency, representing music artists and cultural tastemakers like Dave Matthews, Jewel, Bruce Springsteen, Common, Margot Price, Lang Lang, Andrea Bocelli, Elvis Costello, and Kesha, just to name a few. Did not know that, Bill. What's going on? In December of 2019, Surefire was one of only 2 music PR agencies listed in the New York Observer's prestigious annual Power 50 rankings of PR firms in the country. Surefire's roster of talented clients won a collective 11 Grammy Awards in 2020, including 7 in various best album categories. Bill founded Dolphin Entertainment in 1996. He graduated with honors from Harvard Law School, has received a master's degree in modern European history from Creighton University, and was named first team academic All-American by USA Today while an undergraduate at Creighton. Mr. Haddad has served on the United Way Worldwide Leadership Council since its inception and for almost a decade, and has served as an adjunct professor at the U for over 20 years, teaching the business of motion pictures and television to film and communication majors alike. Bill, what's up? Welcome to the panel.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here on the 4th Nicole Henry Day.
Right. Not one, not 2, not 3.
4.
Make it
Next
happen.
year's 1 for the thumb.
So welcome, Bill. My next panelist is David Nathan. With nearly 30 decades of experience in the music business, David Nathan is a well-known and respected veteran in the entertainment business, working with A-list artists throughout his career. And let me enumerate some of them. Are you all ready? He has worked with Taylor Swift, Elton John, Amy Winehouse, may you rest in peace, Prince, may you rest in peace, Ariana Grande, Florida Georgia Line, and The Weeknd, to name a few. By the way, The Weeknd was snubbed, and we're going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about this panel, but he should have gotten something nominated. Anyway, Nathan has established and promoted some of the most recognizable names in entertainment. Is likewise credited with quarterbacking Taylor Swift's unprecedented radio crossover success at pop radio over her first 10 years. In late 2017, Nathan founded the D&D Endeavors Company. D&D is a talent management and consulting company dedicated to seeing clients and their careers expand from all points in their evolution. Nathan and his team provide a select and distinctive group of clients with a unique approach to talent management and consulting that can bring record contracts, brand endorsements, social media, movies, books, tours, TV shows, and high-profile engagement to his clients. Nathan, welcome to the panel.
How are you?
I'm well.
Thank you.
Listen, we'll talk about it later. You're just awesome.
By the way, I agree with what you said, so we're good.
So thank you very much. We have one more panelist to introduce, and I'm going to get to her right now. Give me 1 second. We're going to pull that up for everyone. Give me 1 second. We have Melissa Exposito. She has her BSc in 06 and her JD in 09. So Melissa, welcome. She is the Vice President of Business Development, Latin Iberia at Sony Music Entertainment. And based in the label's regional headquarters in Miami, Melissa oversees strategic branding partnerships and premium content distribution. In her role, she procures, negotiates, and executes large-scale business partnerships for the label, managing a multi-million-dollar book of business with Fortune 500 companies. A passionate content producer at Sony Music, she co-created the award-winning original music documentary, and I'm going to mess this up, Melissa, please forgive me, on Latra de Otro, winning her first
Close enough.
Is it close?
Close enough. En letra de otro.
You won your first Latin Grammy Award as producer for the series. It's the inaugural edition starring singer-songwriter Pedro Capó. Prior to joining Sony Music, Melissa was a producer at ACME, or Acme Production Services, an independent television and concert and event production company where she managed international productions for clients such such as the Latin Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences, Univision Network, Fox Pan American Sports, MTV, and Billboard, among others. Melissa is an attorney, earning her JD at the University of Miami School of Law in 2009. As I mentioned, she graduated cum laude from UM School of Communication in 2006, where she earned her Bachelor's of Science in Communication, and she has minors in marketing and Portuguese. And you also have your major in Spanish. So lawyer, music person, multi-talented. Melissa, welcome to the panel.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Really happy to be here.
We're happy to have all of you. So now that we've gotten all of that out of the way and everyone's tired of hearing me, I'm going to start with some of the questions. And this question is for all of you, the panelists. And so you can jump in as you feel deemed fit to go ahead and say something. Where were you when you realized that the music would stop because of the pandemic sweeping the world? Where were you?
I'll jump in. I remember coming back. I was on a trip from LA to Nashville, Nashville, then back to New York. It was the very beginning of March. I was consulting a company called Live by Live at the time, which is an audio and video music streaming platform company. They focus on working on festivals around the world. And the first thing that I remember was when Ultra Music Festival in Miami was canceled. Right after that, Apple pulled out of South by Southwest, following Twitter, Amazon, TikTok, Facebook, all pulled out of that. And then right after that, South by Southwest was canceled. And following that, Coachella and Stagecoach. And the one artist that I always remember being canceled, because I'm a big Pearl Jam fan, was when they canceled their tour. And I remember that because I had tickets to some of the shows around the country. And I remember talking to some of my colleagues and looking back and saying, like, wow, this is not going to be March and April. This is going to be a long time. So that's my recollection.
Yeah, David, it would seem to me that, if you're starting to see these concerts, these big iconic concerts and such, start to be canceled, then I guess that was, pretty telling in terms of this is not just a 2-month thing. This is going to be with us for a while.
Yeah.
I'm interested, Nicole, what do you have to say about that? Where were you?
Well, it was wild. It was the Thursday, I want to say it was the 12th of March. And I was here in Miami, actually, because I've been living between New York City and Miami. And I was down here doing a production. All the cast was down from New York, and we were about to open the world premiere of A Wonderful World, which is this new Louis Armstrong musical. So we were right here on Lincoln Road, which is funny. That's a whole other story. But we were right there on Lincoln Road at the Colony Theater. And Thursday, before our Saturday premiere opening, we were in previews. They said, this is what's going on, and we're going to shut down, and we don't know how long, but as soon as it's over, we'll be right back in here. So we had one more night of previews, and then Saturday was going to be the opening, but March 13th, we closed the doors. And it felt like it was kind of like getting prepared for a hurricane. We're all used to that in South Florida. So, we all went shopping. We got a bunch of canned goods and all this stuff. And then it just felt like, okay, maybe it'll be a week, a month, maybe 2 months. But yeah, it's just, it's something we've never experienced before. So you can't relate it to anything. And it was just kind of like, I remember waking up one day in May and thinking, I had a dream that like, oh, it's over. And I remember waking up and going, oh my gosh, wait, there were so many things I didn't get a chance to finish with all this free time, like all this time. So I was like, oh, it's not over. And I was like, ugh, it's still happening. Wow. So yeah, it's, and then like, you'd get closer to, I had, of course, I'm an artist. So I had a bunch of dates booked, and it was periodically as the dates got closer, 6 weeks, 2 months, then it was like 3 months in advance, people were canceling dates. So that's who we are. But it's, we're all going through it. Yeah.
Yes, we are. And Bill, I'll be interested in knowing, where were you when this went down? Where were you when you realized, this is going to be something that is going to be impactful for a very long time?
I had just returned from Los Angeles. I travel every week. I usually go to one of our offices and do the triangle with New York and LA, and then come home to Miami on the weekends. Just back from LA, was about to jump on a plane the next 2 days later to New York and head over to London and canceled the trip. And much like what David said, we have one of our PR firms handles the concert for Rachel Ray at South by Southwest, which is always a fun day. And that getting canceled and then followed shortly by one of our movies, James Bond, was pushed from April to November, and then got pushed again from this November to next April. We're reliving the cycle. But that was what really also sunk home for a lot of us, that the live event touring, we have a few hundred musical acts with live events over the summer. And as Nicole said, there's just a rolling cancellation, and the fact that theaters would also not be open. I'd say March and April were obviously the nadir of it.
Wow.
For us, the rolling realization this will go on longer than 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Yes. And Melissa, where were you when you realized that, this is going to be sweeping, this is going to be changing? Where were you?
Yeah, so it's funny. I think we were all traveling in some way or another. I was in Buenos Aires, and we were down there for an executive conference, and some of us came down from Miami on the last plane that left Milan before flights got canceled. Wow. And some of us were freaking out about it. I was kind of oblivious to it, to be quite honest with you. It didn't really sink in until we were in Buenos Aires and we started getting calls from corporate and saying, hey, when are you guys coming back? You should probably come back soon. And we landed in Miami, I think it was like March 6th or 7th. And the airport started closing down like 2-3 days later. And we all got sent home to begin work from home like another 2 days later. And I remember our head of HR telling us, hey, pack enough stuff to stay home for about 2 weeks, but don't take any computer monitors because, we'll be back here before you know it. Fast forward to, I think I don't even know how long we've been working from home. At first I would count like the day, I'd count like the weeks. Okay, I made it through 1 week, I made it through another week. I don't know, I think it's month 9 or something like that now. And haven't gotten on a plane in 9 months, went from traveling every month to not traveling at all, which has been, quite an adjustment. Went from, meeting clients in person, attending events, to not doing that at all. A lot of on the brand partnership sides, a lot of clients had events that we were already planning on their behalf, kind of going through the mad hustle of canceling events, shifting those investments to digital platforms in instances where that was possible, in instances where it wasn't possible, reading the contracts to figure out who owed who what. So I think it's been quite a whirlwind, and it all feels like forever, but it also feels like it's gone by in a flash. So who knows where we'll be in the next few months.
It's very interesting. Go ahead.
I just say glad you got our laptop back. It's
yeah, no, they let us take our laptops home, but they didn't want us to take our monitors or our keyboards. I don't know why. It was kind of strange, but eventually we all went back to the office to pick up our stuff when we realized we were going to be gone for so long.
So that's an interesting conversation that we're starting to have, because that was leading into my next question, which was around how has your life changed? And so Melissa, thank you for sharing that. I would be interested in hearing from the other panelists, like how has your life changed pre-COVID, post-COVID, and also what did you have to do? Like what did you start thinking and start to instigate in order to mitigate this new world we're living in? So maybe we can go to Nicole. What do you think, Nicole?
Oh my gosh. Like you said, it was hard to start counting the weeks and the months. And so immediately, I love learning. So I was like, okay, well, maybe I should start taking history classes, because I've always wanted to study history. And I was like, oh no, I'll start doing. So I went back into some acting classes just to keep that going. I started, kept going back to a couple of my vocal teachers to do that. And I've always wanted to get more into hosting. So I took some online hosting classes and courses, and then I took my voiceover class and I made a newer voiceover reel. So I just kept like signing up for classes and just learning and learning and learning. When it comes to performance wise, you know, I had a nightmare of a first live stream.
What
that
happened?
was with a venue that I perform at a lot in New York City called 54 Below, Feinstein's 54 Below.
Yeah.
And yeah, that didn't happen. I mean, it started and then it didn't happen. And I think like it was a mix between like I started and then I think Donald Trump started and there was some thing blocked on Facebook. It was just a nightmare. And then that didn't happen. So I was like this with live streaming for about a month and a half after that April date that didn't happen. And it was like advertised everywhere, like in Broadway World and like Time Out and everything. And
Oh,
it just was like, it just collapsed. Like there was no communication between, because they had furloughed a bunch of people from their offices and they didn't communicate with me about what, so that was like a mess. But anyway, you know, you come out of it. It's like nothing you can do with all these technical things. This was early on, but I tried. But then I think in late May, I mean, I did a few things. My big concern, I mean, we have high world problems right now. You know, my biggest concern, because I was, what are families doing? I mean, you know, what are people with kids and people who don't have jobs and people are getting laid off? So I did a bunch of fundraisers online to raise money for Liberty City. I'm here in Miami, so did fundraisers for that, and that was awesome. We raised a bunch of money and went shopping for families. Then I finally did another fundraiser in May. I sit on the board of Miami Music Project, which is a great organization here in Miami-Dade, and we teach kids after school music lessons. So we did a big fundraiser for them. And I was like, oh, I was more successful raising money online on a fundraiser, like $16,000. So that was really cool. And that's where my heart went. I was like, well, I'm fortunate because I have a place to stay. I can, you know, buy food for myself. But my biggest concern was like, you know, who can't? This is like crazy. So it was a blessing to be able to do that and use this, you know, the Zoom thing and the Facebook Lives for that stuff. So that's kind of where I dove into. It was like, how can I help other people and how can I use this time? Because we always dreamed that we had, if I had just 2 more days in a week, and that's so I just tried to do everything I've been saying I need to do on my list.
and it's very interesting that you tapped into maybe some of the passions that you hadn't had a chance to get to. And then that philanthropic piece has always been part of you. You were able to do a little bit more. So that's very admirable. I'm curious, David, were you able to incorporate some of those things, or how was your experience similar or different?
Well, first, I'm to this day, I'm really upset that I didn't buy stock in Zoom. Because I wouldn't have to do anything anymore. Yeah, that, but like Nicole, I quickly learned how to go on these virtual conversations, these virtual, you know, the computer, and I'm still trying to figure out how to do my backgrounds. I'll get there. But
inside joke.
Yeah, for me, you know, it was interesting because I worked from home, but I worked in an element that was not home. So I had an office, I had a situation where I was able to go in and see people, and I like to be around people. So I don't like sitting in a room that there's nobody there. So for me, anybody that knows me knows that I'm a people person, and I thrive on that. So the first part of this was sitting out on the driveway, waiting, you know, watching people walk back and forth and run and do all these things because no one really thought anything was going to happen. Musically, you know, I was watching a lot of artists suffer. I've, you know, like you said in the beginning, Winston, you know, I've worked with some of the biggest artists in the world. And as time has gone on, you know, you see that they're all of a sudden starting now to raise their hands and say, how can we help? What can we do? But in the beginning, you know, it was more about, okay, what are we doing with, you know, the families? How is my kid going to go to school? How are they going to, you know, learn how to adapt and survive in this new world, right? But what I love is that the artists that started to take their initiative, started doing live performances. You all of a sudden started to see an onslaught of live performances, right? From the house, from the car, from the beach, from wherever it was, which by the way, was very smart. You know, everybody started to take advantage of the situation and try to expose themselves in their music and what they were doing, taking the time to create new pieces of product, new music, new movies, new short films, whatever it was. And then it it really started to hit home. And I think that, once the companies like Live Nation really started, and iHeart started to now furlough everybody and started to really take a hit, then it got even more serious. And, you've seen now you've started to see the upswing, I think, as artists are starting to do things a lot more. They're starting to get out a little bit. The producers are working now, not just on Zoom, but they've created these walls in their studios and these COVID proofs, booths that they can go in and they can, do their thing. And I love that, because I think that it's positive. I think that everything's starting to change a little bit, and people are trying to figure out how to live in this new world, right? And so I'm excited about the future. Now that we have this antidote, maybe everybody will be excited about it. Although the people in New York are not getting it, apparently. So, but we're getting through it, and it's been a long stretch, a long haul, and I'm just excited about the future and what artists are doing today. So
excellent. And so I'll ask you the same thing, Bill. How has your life changed, and what have you done differently now that we're in this situation?
Sure. Well, I travel a lot less, right? As we all do. I second that. Wish I had the Zoom stock too. But I think for us, after the initial 2 or 3 weeks of making sure that we're a company of 150 or so employees, and making sure everybody was safe. Probably the majority of our employees are in New York, and then secondly, Los Angeles. So, and in those early weeks, remember, New York was hit very hard. So having everybody work at home, we still haven't gone back to our offices. We have 3 different offices in New York, 2 in Manhattan and 1 in Brooklyn. And just with the music being based out of Brooklyn, and just make sure everybody was safe. When you settle into a routine on the business side, our strongest business goal of the year just actually became more important, which was with music, especially, promoting online. We still had all these artists that had music coming out, the albums being released, the singles being dropped, and we wanted to strengthen that. So we actually were in the middle of and closed buying a social influencer marketing firm this summer. And the immediate integration, yes, they'll work with our movies and TV and our chefs and our hotels, but the principal driver is online to support the music PR that we do. So that's how we tried to use the pandemic to to try and come out a little bit stronger than when we went in, was to try and focus on what we could do with online marketing, because in real world marketing today, who knows when that'll come back. And since we are public, it's out there that we've said that we wanted to buy that company and a live event production company, so we could run some of our own events, whether it be in food or music. But we had to put that on pause because we just don't have any visibility, starting to get to now. But when could live events return? And so back in May and June, I thought we'd have the social influencer marketing firm this summer, which we did, and then the live event production company by this time of year, the fourth quarter, and at the latest, 1 to 2 quarters to be able to buy that company.
Wow. So it just sounds like all of you all have had to be innovative and had to pivot as much as you can. So thank you for sharing that. I wanted to talk to, if you, Melissa and Bill, if you don't mind, I want to talk to Nicole and David for a second around being independent, the independent artist perspective. And, it's tough, I'm sure, with making music and being an independent artist. How has this affected you and the industry that you are, the piece of the industry that you're in? So Nicole, as an independent artist, you've kind of given us some of those oops and uh-ohs that you've experienced, but can you give us a little bit of flavor now that you're in this particular situation? How have you decided, or how have you made moves in order to keep your music going and to kind of keep your career going?
Well, I'll share one thing that was quite wild. As an artist, I'm a very optimistic artist. I have positivity, and I don't know, just a feel good kind of music. And although I love sad songs, and even through the sad songs, I find optimism, and I think people hear that in my voice. So oddly enough, I had these 3 singles that had been recorded, and we were going to distribute and release these singles throughout 2020. And the first single was going to be Whenever I See Your Smiling Face, which is the cover of James Taylor. Feeling Good, Overjoyed.
Oh, all
So
those
you
things.
try releasing Whenever I See Your Smiling Face.
Yep.
When you want everybody to wear a mask, right?
Right.
So that got ixnayed. And then I was like feeling good. And then all this social unrest was happening. And I was like, this is not the time for So the music that I had planned on releasing, so I was like crushed every corner, literally. You couldn't, there was, you don't, because the whole thing was like, whenever I see your smiling face, take pictures of us with your friends and show us your smiling face with your friends. And we did not want to encourage anyone to do that. So needless to say, all of those singles got pushed to the back burner. And now I forget what the question was. What was the question?
So how are you?
Because I was just thinking about
how are you adjusting?
How am I adjusting? Okay.
Yeah, and how are you getting your music out?
Yeah, well, I have to say, I mean, I'm grateful that I started this annual concert that I do in South Florida. And it's my 8th annual winter concert. And if I didn't have this every December, I'm not sure what I would have been focusing on the last 4 months. Because I have to say, from March until October, November, until the elections, it's just been so heavy. And there were even weeks where I just did not want to engage with social media because I was just I couldn't share anything optimistic. Do you know what I mean? Socially, I mean, and you do what you can. You send out these positive messages, and I was heavy on the meditation and trying to get myself in a place so that I could share myself in a positive way, the way that I want to. And it was really challenging. I have to say, it was really challenging. And obviously, there are times we have to throw our hands up and say we're all in this. But and thank God for, a couple of my writing partners, my songwriting partners, my friend in Toronto, he would check in on me. He's like, let's write a song. And I'm like, okay, but we do it. And then something positive came out, and it was, so it was challenging. And I have to say my musician friends, like, fortunately, a lot of them have gone into studio work. We collaborated again with writing and safe studio work. But for me, like I said, I kind of dove into some other learning new things, learning new crafts, studying new things. And then I caught up, like everybody else, caught up on a few Netflix things, but I love TV and stuff. I love being at my desk and working and all that. So
excellent.
Thank you.
So thank you. And what about you, David? How have, looking at your artists, I know some of, a lot of them are big name artists, but how are some of your independent artists, or maybe the artists that aren't as big, how have they been able to, make music now or change or shift their marketing of their music, and how have they been able to do that and survive?
Yeah, it's difficult because when I left Universal and Republic, I left for a reason. I left because I wanted to work with independent small artists. I wanted to develop careers, to build brands, market them, as opposed to being, the 5th, 6th, 7th person in a big, in a big conglomerate. I wanted to be able to be the one who created this from the ground up. So for a while it was really good. And then obviously everything hit. And when you have independent artists, they solely rely, or not solely, but they really rely on being out on the road. Because that's the only way that they can get seen in this, ever-changing landscape. So that really hurt. But what I'm seeing now is through my conversations with people at ADA and the Orchard and Symphonic, and these distribution companies are really starting to pick up steam. They cater to unsigned acts, and their numbers, the indie acts are putting up numbers right now. There's guys. They're signing them, they're bringing them to the forefront. They're making music, they're giving them the opportunity to put it out. I know TuneCore and CD Baby and have seen huge surges in activity across all of their platforms. And I know that I actually did a little research on this, and it comes from a Spotify, and I wanted to read it so I get it right, which is a year ago, Spotify was doing about 40,000 new songs daily, according to Daniel Ek, who's the CEO, which adding to their 50 million stockpile that was already available. You'd think that's only a small portion of the songs that are out there right now. But right now, some of these songs might actually have a better chance of gaining exposure since there are fewer major releases, right? So the independent companies are actually surging and giving these artists an opportunity. And I actually pivoted a little bit in the beginning of this and took a consulting job working for a company called Sweet, which is a music and gaming discovery app. And it's started by a tech guy who needed to bring in some people from the music industry, and he brought me in to do artist and label relations. And the one thing that I'm doing now is kind of connecting the dots between the record labels, the independent artists, the managers, the agents, and giving these artists the opportunity to expose themselves on a platform that didn't exist 6 months ago or a year ago, rather. And it's really starting to take off. And now we're getting into digital collectibles and all these kind of things. And I think that that's where the industry's going a little bit too. So, you know, in a good way, this is giving artists and independent artists and even the big artists, but everybody a real clearer vision of the future, I think, and giving them an opportunity to soar. So again, going back to it, it's exciting about what I see coming out of this over the course of the next few months. It's going to take a second still, but we're getting there. So
yeah, and I think probably the folks who are listening and looking at us will, you know, didn't know and weren't aware of the silver lining that may be there for independent artists. So I appreciate both of you all sharing your experiences. And so just like I did with Melissa and Bill, David and Nicole, I'm going to talk to them for a second, if that's okay. And Melissa, thank you. And Melissa, I'm going to go directly to you. We haven't heard your voice in a minute, but I wanted to ask you, you know, in your role at a corporate, at a label, you were able to, I think, see kind of the whole thing. You know, you can see from, you know, the artists through the different touch points with the corporate structures and the contracts, you know, you see the whole thing. And so can you talk about any corporate initiatives that may be there for artists that are on your label and people who are working within the music industry that your label or that the industry is starting to put forward in order to help support during this time?
Absolutely. So fairly early on in the pandemic, Sony Music made an official announcement about its $100 million global relief fund that it officially established. And the fund has 3 objectives. One is to support frontline medical workers. The second, to support children and educators that are affected by this new, you know, learning from home situation. And the third, of course, is to support creators at every level, right? In addition to that, they had for quite some time an employee matching program. So if you as an employee gave to specific organizations that were involved in COVID relief anywhere in the world, so anywhere, either local organizations or international organizations that were, of course, pre-approved, the company would match dollar for dollar all those funds. And in addition to that, I think as a company, we also, in a non-official way, right, we set out to really support our artists, whether it was support them in the process of creation, however that may be. And there was a lot of people recording from, you know, their living rooms on their laptops, and a lot of people doing free concerts at the very beginning on Zoom. And, you know, we really supported that because we felt that it was our role to do that. And we, you know, we always felt that the artists needed that creative outlet and needed that creative space, even though they weren't able to perform live. As time has kind of progressed in the crisis, you know, things have changed in different parts of the world. You know, we've supported artists on some very specific live initiatives in certain countries that have actually gone surprisingly well. We've also supported employees. I think the company has done a great job of supporting employees during this difficult time, providing, you know, a lot of resources that we wouldn't even think that a company would be able to provide. It's honestly been quite a blessing to work within the Sony Music ecosystem during this time of uncertainty. And I think both artists and human, I guess, human talent within the company. I think everyone has felt the support of the company in a really holistic way. I think it's going to be interesting to see how all that continues moving forward as we reach different phases of the pandemic and we evolve into kind of this new way of working, new way of creating.
Yeah, kudos to you all at Sony for this initiative and that money that you put there in the matching. Who knew? I mean, what a great news story. Thanks for sharing that with us. And Bill, your perspective on this topic around, what are some corporate initiatives that you have heard of, and maybe what is your company doing to help support the struggling musicians and people along all of the food chain within the music industry?
Sure. Well, I think one area that's got a lot of visibility and then one that maybe doesn't have as much. So I think we're all aware of the Save Our Stages Act, right, in front of Congress right now, and how important that is. And when you think of music specifically, there's a National Independent Venue Association. So there's about 3,000 sites, and we represent quite a bit of venues as well, quite a few venues, and the events that they hold. And widely reported in the last 2 weeks is the expectation that over 90% of those sites, over 2,700 out of 3,000, will go bankrupt without federal relief and in this new bill that's being passed. We hope in the next couple of weeks, so bankrupt by March. So there's a time is of the essence, I think, feel around the stages and those venues that are so important to the music industry. That the acts that David was talking about, that, we get past the top 15, 20, 30 acts in any roster of every 100, and you have artists that need those independent venues to be able to perform and make a living. I think the other area we're concerned about and donating to would be an issue that doesn't get as much visibility, which is the unemployment benefits for freelancers. So when you think of the entertainment industry, you think of freelance artists and musicians especially, right? They're self-employed. And when the pandemic hit, unemployment benefits were expanded to include freelancers, which are not eligible for unemployment benefits typically. And 7 million Americans are currently getting unemployment benefits that previously would not have been afforded those benefits. 7 million, making over $1,000 a month on average. Well, those unemployment benefits, just like the standard unemployment benefits from the pandemic, end at the end of the year. So if you lost your job in March or April, those 26 weeks plus extra 13 the government gave finish. So what's not yet widely reported is that probably means 7 million breadwinners, no income starting in January, and that's very scary. And I think that's a lot of probably what Melissa and David and Nicole with her friends are seeing with the artists out there and what happens. So those are our two focuses and our areas of concern, and where we're devoting our resources to help.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, it's
I just wanted to jump in because it's what's interesting to me is that the artists that step up and do things, and you saw a big New York, I don't know if you guys saw it, but a big New York concert the other night. But I talked about this earlier the other day when we were having our initial conversation, and one thing that just really stands out in my mind is what Jimmy Allen has done, and specifically him, because he was on ABC the night before the CMAs, and they were talking about him, and he went out and said, I went across the street to the bank, I took a loan out that I probably I will be able to pay back over time, but these guys all need the money now. And these are the people that work for him. These are the crew, the security, the riggers, the truck drivers, the bus drivers. And it stuck with me when I saw that on ABC, because that was national television. It was a platform, not just for the country world, but for everyone. And here's an artist that, did something incredible. And I know that that's happening in different places. And it's really important because everybody's suffering. It's not just the music or just the, it's the movies, it's television, it's legal, it's everything. And the artists have an obligation, so to speak, to take care of their people. And some of them are really stepping up, and I applaud that. So.
Yeah, that's great. and we need to hear more about that, so that people are not just looking like, what are they doing? They're asking us for, $3, $5 for concerts, and what are they doing with it? They're actually, going into their own pockets, or to your point, borrowing money in order to help out. So that's excellent. So we actually have some questions coming in from people who are logged on and engaged with our conversation, which is always a good thing. So our first question comes from Jeff from New Jersey. So first of all, Jeff, thank you for the question. He is directing this question to David.
Of course he is.
David, he wants to know your opinion on the future of live concerts with the vaccine. And do you ever see a 20,000 packed Madison Square Garden in the future?
I do. And I have a lot of friends. One of my very good friends is the head of live entertainment at Madison Square Garden Networks and all their venues. I know that they've already put on sale tickets for Justin Bieber, and who's, I think, July. I do 100% believe that people will come back. People are starving to see live entertainment and not on a computer. They are, they're craving it. And I think that once the vaccine comes and everybody has it, and then people know that they could be sitting next to somebody or in a crowded room or in a venue of 100,000 people or a Super Bowl or whatever it is and be okay, they're all going to start going again. And that, by the way, that goes for sporting events as well, because I don't know about all you guys, but I hate watching all of this. I mean, some of it's kind of cool, but I don't like watching empty venues. I don't like seeing them at all. It depresses me. It upsets me. But the easy answer to this is 100%. I see people going back. I mean, I don't know if you, Nicole, or anybody, I don't know, but I do.
Yeah,
Definitely.
absolutely. And if you look at even music consumption has gone up in the months since the pandemic began, even though at the beginning it took a bit of a dip and consumption habits changed. But if you read, I believe it was in September that Spotify made the announcement on its third quarter results, and they were doing better than ever. The labels are doing better than ever. I think, people crave music, and there's no better way to experience music than in a packed venue with, thousands of screaming fans singing along with you.
Yeah. What do you think, Nicole?
No, I agree. Everybody's waiting. I mean, even the artists are waiting. They're even going into venues and then live streaming, at least from the venues, which is what I have something coming up doing that. But yeah, it'll pass. This will pass, just like it did in 1918. Give us the year, hopefully no more than a year. Yeah, that's exciting to hear. Bieber is going to be at the Madison Square Garden, so that's good.
He's the first one, but I think it's the first one. I'm not sure. There may be one before it, but he's
good sign.
Yeah.
Sign.
Having produced a Justin Bieber documentary film, I'm trying to picture telling those fans that they're not allowed in. Right? Can you imagine? Okay, let me see how that works.
Gary.
So we have our second question that's come in, and it's from Ebony from North Carolina. Thank you, Ebony, for tuning in and for your question. And this goes to folks who are on the business side of the music industry. But her question is around, what advice do you give to alumni and students who want to break into the business side of the music industry? What advice would you give them?
Go, do it. Just I have an intern, a friend of mine, one of my mentors in the business, Grant's son, who goes to Syracuse. I mean, he's in the music school there, and he interned for me 2 summers ago. He interned for me all last summer, and he is now starting his own starting his own management company on his own, and I'm going to help him. And I'm so excited for him because he's coming out. Yes, he's coming out of a music school, even like Frost, and those are 2 of the best in the business. But I encourage everybody. I mean, every time I speak, I sit there and I talk to people after for an hour and 2 hours, and I'm like, whatever you want to do, if I can help you, I will. Like, I just believe in that because it's our future. The music has to live somewhere as we start to progress and get older. There's a whole new generation, my kids and you guys and your kids and then their kids, and it has to continue to evolve. So go, do it. Don't be afraid. Just go.
Yeah.
And Bill, what do you say? What do you say about that, Bill? Do you say go? Or do you?
Yeah, no. Well, I echo the sentiments of David. As you mentioned in the outset, and some of the people listening, I taught, right? I've taught at the University of Miami for 25 years, and seniors and grad students, mostly in the film side. and help them get those first jobs, right? I always say, take the final and then call me. I'll buy you lunch. You're starving, you're a student, and tell me what you want to do and go get you that first job. And you know, there's just such a passion in the entertainment industry for wanting to work in it. And what most people need is just that entry point, that very first job. And then after that, you know, their hard work will take over. So to the extent we can be resources to help people get that leg in, then that's what we try and do. And create a network of former students. And every time now we get together 20, 25 people in a night, a couple of times a year, right time to the graduation, right? So normal graduations. And in May, then do a party in June and invite the former students to come and help the current students, the current graduates get that first job. So it pays it forward. And I think that's the idea, doing it every May and December. And now we've expanded that to New York, and we'll add the music business to go with the film and TV, and hopefully it's a virtuous cycle.
Cool.
I love it. And Melissa, we do have a question directed towards you, or someone wants to ask you the question, and it's Carmen in Miami. So thank you, Carmen, for tuning in, and thank you for your question. She wants to know, why do you feel like that women have a lack of equality and visibility in general in the music industry? What has been your experience, and why do you think it's prevalent and still prevalent?
Hi, Carmen. Thank you for your question. That's a good question. I think that's changing, and I think that there's a lot of big companies and big organizations that are making it a point to change that and to give more women opportunities. I myself have always been, the sole woman or one of few women in the room since I began my career in the entertainment business. I must say that I have never felt that I've been at a disadvantage, and I've never felt that I have been given less opportunities because I am a woman. But it has been the truth that I don't have a whole lot of other female colleagues, right? That's changing, and there's a lot of females that are entering the music business, both from a creative and a production standpoint, as well as from a business standpoint. But it's not as common. I think you should always try to strive for what it is that you want to achieve, regardless of your gender. If Carmen, if it is your wish to work in music, you make that a reality. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Going back to the previous question, my first gig was being a production assistant in television and in concert production. I basically picked up garbage for a paycheck, but it was, the most productive garbage pickup gig that I ever had, because I met so many people, and I got the opportunity to get my foot in the door in a business that I was passionate about. So if you get that opportunity, no matter what it is, as long as it's legal, I say take it. Take it and make the best of it and run with it, and always stand your ground, and always respect yourself, and others will respect you too.
Yeah, I'll tell you that I just, even in the last 2 days, I've had 3 conversations, 2 general managers and a president, all female. And I love it. Like, I think it's, for someone who has a daughter who, wants to do this or sing, what she wants to do everything right now, but I love it, and I empower it. And I have to give, I don't know if any of you know Leslie Fram, but Leslie is a very good friend of mine, and she runs CMT. And she's made a conscious effort over the last 3 years, or 2 or 3 years, to really make sure that women in music are noticed, that radio doesn't play all males. There's now a system in place where they have to play a female every, I don't know if it's 2 or 3 songs, but she's really been on the forefront of this and really taken the lead at CMT, and it's incredible. And I love her, and I love what she stands for. And in a mostly dominated country world, for someone to be able to do that is fantastic. So it is changing. Still has a long way to go, unfortunately, but I love to see where it is and where it's going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and I'll just jump in there, because I've been even though I wasn't a professional singer initially, I started working with the Grammy Award, with the Recording Academy, and it's whoever asked the other question right before about getting into the industry. That's always a good networking organization, and to meet more professionals in the industry. But it's great to see all the initiatives, particularly about gender. And I remember being in the office, working in the office for the Grammys, but then of course, then being on the board for 4 years and just seeing how the board has changed as far as representation, men to women and so forth. And there are more women in the business, you know, so it's a wonderful thing to see. Yeah, bravo, Melissa and
So
everybody.
the conversation has been really, really great, but we only have 3 minutes left. And so we probably aren't going to get to these last questions, but I want to acknowledge that the questions were asked. And so the question was coming from Valentina Shelton. She's a graduating senior from the Frost School of Music. And her question was around, you know, advice that you all might be able to give. And this is for David, advice you might be able to give for independent artists to get exposure in light of the fact of what you just talked about. So many independent artists are going into that area. However, maybe we can get that answer from you, David, and shoot it over to Valentina when we are done. But unfortunately, we are close to time. And so I want to take this opportunity to again thank our wonderful panelists for being with us. Come on, give me some snaps and some finger snaps and some.
Nice.
We want to thank you all so very much for being here. We want to thank our folks for tuning in and looking at us and listening. We want to thank the people who've asked questions. We really appreciate that. So again, to Melissa.
You did a great job.
Bravo, Winston.
Thank you, Winston.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Great to be on the panel with everybody.
And so I think with that, we're going to sign off. And it's all about the you. And thank you for being here. And go Canes.
Go Canes.
Go Canes.
Thank you.